Hi, this is Bobby Kimbrough, and welcome to Off the Cuffs. Very excited today to have with us Commissioner Tonya McDaniels. I want to first welcome you to the show and thank you for stopping by, taking time out of your day to come and share with us. Welcome to Off the Cuffs.
Thank you, Sheriff Kimbrough. It is my pleasure to be here, sir, with you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
the
you.
invitation.
It's kind words, kind words. So what we try to do is when we bring guests on, we always ask them, a lot of people know who you are, some don't. Most people know exactly who you are. Tell us about who you are. How did you arrive at the county commissioner's office? And basically, what do you do? Who is Tonya McDaniels?
Sure. Those are great questions, and thank you for asking. So Tonya McDaniel is now currently your sitting county commissioner. So I've been sitting since 2018. We ran that election. We won. I got involved. I've always been interested in the art of politics. However, I got involved in the county commissioners because we had an issue in our community relative to the property taxes and the devaluation of those properties. So I went to talk to our current commissioner at the time, and, he just kind of blew me off a couple times.
Yeah.
And after that, he offered that I run for the seat. So I ran and I won.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Glad you're here.
So I'm responsible, and I'm so very grateful for the opportunity to be able to serve as a servant for the people. I'm the people's choice elected servant. And in my role, I'm responsible for ensuring that the property taxes are acquired, but we want to make sure that they're as low as they can be for the constituency. And we did some cost sharing in last year's budget. So individuals should be able to see that. We're responsible for the sheriff's budget, and we give about. We'll talk about your budget in a moment. So we give about $150 million of our budget to the Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools. We're responsible for health and human services, our libraries, public health. So that's just to name a few.
So tell me, are you originally from Winston, right?
I am from Winston-Salem.
Yeah.
They call it the Tray 4.
Tray 4.
Yes, sir.
Tray 4. That's it. A lot of people don't know why they call it Tray 4, right? We told them a long time ago. The reason they call it Tray 4 is because there are 100 counties in North Carolina, and this happens to be the 34th county.
That is correct.
Tray 4.
Yeah,
right.
I know.
So, so what did you do after high school? We always like to talk about people from whence they've come.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it was important to me. I got married and had the 40 acres and a mule, the white picket fence with the children. Yeah. And so I had 3 children and a husband. But then after I became divorced and back from Winston-Salem because I am a military brat. I left at 3 and came back at around 19, 20 years old.
Wow.
Moved in inner city East Winston and kind of been working my way through. Went back to college at Winston-Salem State University where I entered to learn and departed to serve. Graduated from Central University where I graduated out of there in Truth and Service. So
I like that.
Super excited about the HBCUs.
So tell us, at the county commissioners, people don't really understand what the commissioners do, what they're responsible for.
Right.
You started talking about the budgets, what they're responsible for. So many budgets, the budget of the whole county, basically.
That is correct.
You guys give the funding, allocate funding, control, allow the money.
That is correct. We have a population of about 388,000 residents and right at 400. Well, if we were about 400, we'd get more money from the federal government, but, powers that be. We're right at 388 per the census count. And we're responsible for about over $500 million budget.
Yeah. So how do you like working as a commissioner? So tell us some of the difficulties, some of the plus, some of the pros, the cons. What do you like about being over there?
Well, those are good questions. I do feel like I've given back to my community, and that's important. And I've had to learn. So I'm still in my learning phases in the first 4 years. Before I got into this race, I followed another commissioner to Washington and to Raleigh because I wanted to learn. I wanted to, I would come to the meetings, kind of sit in and listen. I think that it's important to have intelligence, emotional intelligence around who you're working with, and could I really work with these people? Could this schedule work with my current job that I do for United Health Centers as a public affairs and relations officer? So I wanted to be successful. So when you talk about the negative, so I'm the minority in the minority. What does that sound? What does that mean? That means that I am the only African-American female that sits on the minority board that sits on the board. And it takes at least 4 votes to carry any
I'm aware of
policy
that.
or budget, right?
I'm aware of that.
So if I only have 3, that means I got to go get another one from somewhere. And it's hard because you're criticized at times for working alongside other political parties. But again, if you're the minority, you have to go get your votes, right?
True.
So I understood very early that I needed a relationship with many of them. Chairman Pryler has always been there to support. We love him, absolutely. Him. But when I first started, he would always say, "Well, what did Don say?" And I was like, "Oh gosh!" So in order for me to get another 4th, it turns into 5 to just kind of go and have some conversations with Don, Commissioner Martin. But that's fine. So normally the things that we've been able to do, and I know that it was very troubling even for you when you first started because they were out to give you nothing. But again, yeah, that is very true. So, it's taken some time for me to create those relationships now that I think that most of the times you have a vote of 6-1. But we're changing that.
You know what I have learned in my 3 years and some change is that a lot of times I don't think people understand what the ask is for. Like you and I have an understanding of what's happening in the inner city and in a lot of places. And so when you see it from a bird's eye view from the ground level, that's where my passion comes in sometimes. And I guess sometimes when I come across the street, people think that I'm upset. I'm not upset. It's just a passion because if not, then who?
Right.
Because I see and I understand the importance of funding. Funding changes the landscape. Funding gives people opportunity that typically they wouldn't even have an opportunity to experience. And so it has always been interesting when I come across the street and have financial discussions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I will just say this. I think it's important that individuals kind of know your story, right? They see the glory, but they don't know the story. So I knew very early on that you were as compassionate as I was because I've lost my son to gun violence, and that's something that you knew. And many times when we have these incidents in our communities, you're knocking on the door and I'm trailing right behind you, or we're meeting each other at those same doors. So I knew because of your passion, you are a different sheriff. You're innovative and you're creative around the work that you want to do. It's not, and you got to do your job. I understand that. It's about enforcement, but it's not totally about that for you. And I respect that and I acknowledge it. And that's the reason why we want to support many times.
I appreciate it. So let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Looking at the current landscape, what's happening in our city, tell me your thoughts on the violence, the poverty, and so many things that are happening. What's your thoughts on that? I had to hit you with that.
Well, no, those are good questions. And I can't speak for the city because I do live in the city and the city encompasses the county. But I will say countywide and especially relative to the District A that we have a problem. And I don't know unless we're all willing to get to the round table.
When you say District A, a lot of people don't know what that district is.
So District A is combined in the inner city of Forsyth County. For example, Winston-Salem, Northeast, Southeast, East Winston, those areas. So we're responsible for that. In the many people like to describe it as the donut, kind of ridiculous, but that's how they see it. So it's inside the county of Forsyth. But relative to your question,
what do you think the problem is? The violence, the disparities that take place there.
Yeah, and we all know that there are various socioeconomic issues that are transpiring. I don't have any answers. I can only hear, and I would love to have a roundtable discussion with policymakers, community advocates, community individuals to come up with solutions, because putting money into sources is good, but I'm glad that I'm on the ground as well so that I can acknowledge some of these organizations that are really doing the work. When I first got on that board, they were kind of funding in special appropriation some organizations, and I was like, who are they? What do they do? What is the qualitative analysis? I want to see numbers. So I'm a numbers kind of girl, but nevertheless, and I'm big on budget, so I want to know how it's making sense. Is there equity and equality in terms of funding? And they had no rhyme or reason, but I think that over the years, they've kind of changed their landscape in terms of how they fund. So I'm happy about that. But I don't, to your answer, I don't have the answer. I would love for us to be able to get together, and that's something that's missing, is us policymakers, as elected servants, organizations, and community being at the table to come up with solutions.
So let me ask you a question. A lot of times people say this to me, and my answer is simple. People in the city, right, pay county tax.
They do.
Right? So and they also elect the person that sits in the office of the people.
City. Oh,
the
for the Sheriff's Department.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So my question is that should the county or should my budget reflect the services for them as well, or some part of that? And I've often wondered that, and I was going to ask that question, but since you're here today, I thought I'd go ahead.
Well, that's good, because I brought some numbers.
Thought I'd go ahead and throw that one at you.
But of course.
I think that, in my opinion, people have this old adage that the sheriff is responsible for the county.
You are.
But it's the entire county, and the city sits inside the county.
That is correct.
So in my thoughts, right, if people in the city pay county taxes,
correct,
they should expect services from the county.
But of course.
Right?
Yes.
That would be like taxation without representation and services. So since they pay taxes, they should expect services from me.
But of course.
So if they expect services from me, it's going to take some more money for me to provide services for them, like some of the programs that we do inside the city that, we often criticize about. It's not the typical nuts and bolts that you would typically see in law enforcement. So I was going to ask that question one day, but since you're here, you just happen to be right here.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I brought some fancy numbers so that we can talk about that.
Sure.
And, I will say one of the things I'm always saying is that we're fired up and ready to go, right? Because we're walking like we talk it. And I do agree that there should be some fired up and frustrations as well. But we are moving the needle, right?
I would agree with that.
Yes.
We're moving it.
Back in
Slow,
FY,
but we're moving it.
We are. FY20, we gave the Sheriff's Department about $60 million out of the budget. And this year, we're looking at about $65 million. So there is a significant increase. We've done well in terms of the old medical jail provider. So we move from correct care to WellPath to now NAFTA care. And we have about $4.5 million investment in that. You have your behavioral health portion of that, which is great. And then we have about $2.2 million for your JIT team. Right?
Yeah, we finally got that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate all of you all supporting that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And alongside that, the SROs, even though it comes out of the Winston-Salem Forsyth County school budget, we give about $4 million for the SROs. So I acknowledge, again, it's getting the support from the other commissioners, but I think that we're all in the same alignment in terms of what your needs are.
Yeah.
But I also have to be mindful, too, because I'm responsible for being a good steward over the funding. And I will say that often for the constituency, somebody has to pay for that. So what happens is when there's increases, and when I talk about it relative to the city needs to do their part, too, in terms of stepping up. So it's a collaborative work.
I always hear that conversation as a collaborative work. I always hear that conversation about people being good stewards of the money. I get that. I'm a firm believer of that. But I think that sometimes when we look at the picture, we don't equate, as you said, approximately 400,000, right? 388,000, right? 12,000 short, right? Of being 400,000, right?
Right.
It's probably 400,000. Just some people that they didn't count.
That is absolutely.
They didn't answer the door when the census, or they didn't send the paper back. So if you look at a budget, right? And you're responsible for 400,000 people, right?
Right.
I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? I'm going to have to sell some cardboard, some recyclables or something.
Right.
So who do I need to speak to try to get about 15 more million?
That would be your commissioners. And you're doing a really great job. But again, remember, for me, it's horse trading.
I get it. Trust me. That's a term
we
use over here all the time, horse trading. Yeah.
And I have to tell you that, there's other individuals that I'm responsible for making sure that have access as well. And, sometimes they'll tell me, the powers that be and the majority will say, just not this time, not right now. It doesn't mean a no, but it's just no right now. And I understand that. I got 4 more years, and I got 4 more years, and 4 more other years.
I like that.
So we'll be making some things happen.
Well, you know what? I appreciate that, knowing that you're open to that concept. So I won't belabor that point. But you brought up one of the things that you all did for them, which I thought was very insightful for you all to do that. That was a juvenile intervention investigative team that you all sponsored this year.
Yes.
It was much needed, to talk about the juvenile violence, to talk about all the things that are happening inside the city as well as the county. We have to be at a place to where we can relatively respond to the issues, some of the things that are happening in the community. So I was grateful for that. I was grateful for the commissioners that supported that. We got a lot of hurdles that we've got to jump over, a lot of places that we've got to arrive at, because like you said, we are moving the needle. We're moving the needle, of course, not as fast as I would like. I wanted microwave, like quick, fast, in a hurry. But you guys are doing a great job. Actually, it's always an experience when I come across the street.
Of course.
I keep it in my notes. Experience 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right?
Okay.
I'm up to about 10 now, right? So when I come over there, I kind of just walk away every time I learn something and realizing, hey, here's what we're dealing with, and here's what you got to respond to.
Certainly. So I will say, for the JIT team, it was an easy yes for me. It was an easy yes for me in the budget last year, if you remember that this came up.
I? Of course I do.
I didn't have the numbers because,
Right.
again,
We didn't get the numbers
I'm the
last year.
minority in the minority, but I'm grateful that they thought it through, and to have the support from both of my seatmates, and I will just say both of them because I have to say this, out of the Second Amendment resolution that just kind of went crazy on our board, I had the commitment from Commissioner Linville to do something. And then I also had the commitment from Commissioner Martin to do the resolution. So the funding came in at $400,000, and it's been growing ever since. And I couldn't have done that by myself.
Of course.
Or just with the 3.
Everywhere I go, I tell the people that I love my commissioners. You all haven't always agreed with me, but I will say that you've been generous to me, all 7 of you. You've been generous. You've been good to the sheriff's office.
Thank you.
I just like to see an increase in some of the training. We can increase the training budget. I think you got us for like $100 per person over here. I can't go to Site Tech for $100.
I understand, and
so I'm excited.
Training is important.
Yeah,
it's important.
I'm excited about the upcoming conversations about trying to increase the numbers and increase it, because at the end of the day, this world evolves around money.
That's correct. So, Sheriff Kimbrough, what I will say about the JIT team is that I'm looking for that to be very intentional, right? The money came down from the federal government to build back better our communities. That was in the qualified for census tract in our community. So working alongside the cure violence, we're doing double work.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting to see residual and some return on the investment that we've made with both entities.
Of course.
Yeah.
We got a couple projects that we're working on, sharing with you offline some of the things that we're looking forward to. Chula Vista project that we're working on, and a few other projects. So we constantly looking for your support and the rest of the commissioners on these upcoming projects that we're working on.
Just be patient with us.
Yeah. I know.
We're trying to figure it out, and we want to make sure that, most everyone has access.
That's true. And I agree with you. We want everyone to have access. We do. We want everyone to have input. We want everyone to have a seat. So let me ask you a couple more questions, then
Sure.
I ain't hold you. I know you're a busy woman.
No worries.
So-
I'm happy to be here.
So what's it like when y'all are sitting in the rooms over there going back and forth? What's that like?
I will say that
I'd
it's
like to
friendly
have a
fire.
I would like to have a camera back there and record y'all, right, without y'all knowing it. We can work it out. If you can just give me the okay, we can give you like a little pen camera. You wear it on your lapel or something.
Yeah.
And kind of so we can see what's going on.
I will
What's
say
like?
that it's been very interesting because you
You being
hear.
nice. It's off the cuff.
No, I'm telling you.
Okay.
I'm getting
Go
to
ahead.
that. So I will say that it's very interesting for me. I will say that our community, sometimes you don't quite know exactly how they want you to respond. So I can act up if you need me to.
Right,
But,
right.
I mean, does that really get honey? No, it doesn't. So there's lots of conversation that goes on back and forth. And, I'm intentional because I'm on the ground and we see actually what happens in our communities. I've invited some of the commissioners to our communities to kind of see what's happening on the ground.
I think they saw firsthand last week.
Yeah. So, with that, I have to speak up a lot.
Yeah.
And sternly at times too. Try not to use too many cussing words. I hope my bishop's not watching.
Bishop McDaniel, you using profanity, he gonna have a fit.
I know, right?
So how does that work? So you guys get the proposal, y'all sit around, y'all hash it out, talk about it, you have a briefing on it, and then when it comes up for a public vote, that's when you guys. So you already know what the vote is before we get there.
Not necessarily. I will tell you here recently, there was a business matter in Tobaccoville that I had given my verbal support that I was going to support, but by the time the conversations came for public input, my heart just kind of changed, especially when mothers and grandmothers got up to speak. And when they talk about the violence, I just couldn't vote. So it surpassed anyways, but I have to sleep at night.
Yeah. So you guys get a lot of calls from the citizens of this county.
But of course, daily, yes. Emails, phone calls, in-person meetings. And, I work a full-time job as a public affairs and relations officer for United Health Centers. But on Thursdays, I've committed my entire day, well, probably more than just Thursdays, but Thursdays are my days to have constituency care. So I meet with a lot of the constituents on that day before our meetings.
Wow. So let me ask you this. So how do you juggle your interests versus the people's interests? In other words, I've had to make some decisions on things that I may not have agreed with from a personal standpoint, but from a standpoint of what I know intellectually is right versus an emotion. What I feel is an emotion. What I know in my mind to be right is intellectual. That's why you hear me make the comment all the time that we'll do what is right, what is legal, and what is moral.
But of course.
And sometimes you have to juggle that. And I can imagine when you all are having conversations, it's not a legal issue, it's not a moral issue, it's what you feel is right.
Well.
So you have a lot of leverage.
True.
You do. On what you can say, okay, I'll support that, versus I don't. I have to operate between those realms what's legal.
True. Well, we do have to follow. There are legal ramifications if we don't follow some things. But I will say I don't work out of a spirit of emotions.
Okay.
I'm very courageous. Sometimes we're described as very strong women. No, I don't think that I'm strong. I think I'm more courageous than anything else. And I ask for the strength to come from the people and from my person that I believe in. So I don't ever have an agenda, personal agenda for anything. I don't belong to any organizations. I don't have any dogs in the fight in any of this. I just work for the people and I want to make things better. And I think, like I said, we're moving that needle. It may be a little slow, but we're moving.
I appreciate that.
So I'm satisfied with the work, but we still have work to do. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. 2 last questions.
Sure.
If you had a magic wand and you could wave it, what changes would you like to see in your ward?
My district?
District, excuse me.
No worries.
The city call them ward, right?
They do.
Okay,
yes.
In your district, what would you like to see happen in your district if you had a magic wand?
Sure.
And then, of course, if you had a magic wand, what would you like to see happen in terms of the sheriff's office? No, I was just going to say the boy sheriff. I'm going to tell you like that. But just basically, if you had a magic wand, what would you like to see happen in your district?
So definitely safety and security is important. So I definitely would like to see more collaboration between the city and the sheriff's department. So whatever that looks like, I don't know. I'm not the subject matter expert in that, but I would like to see that work. And maybe in some way we could add in behavioral health, so our public health and behavioral health, because I feel like a lot of the violence that is transpiring is behavioral health driven, mental health. those types of things. Secondly, I think that we're doing pretty good in terms of where our school systems are in terms relative to our work. So there's a difference. The county commissioners are not over the sheriff's department or over the school board. That you guys are elected. But I am responsible for ensuring that the funding that comes down is allocated appropriately and that you're using it appropriately, right? So, giving $150 million to the school systems and we're not seeing our children kind of matriculate more positively in my district, I feel I'm very angry about it. Yeah, so it's disturbing. And I know that there.
So I want to make sure I understand. I have to ask this question,
sure,
right?
No problem.
When it's a gray area for me, I'll try to make it clear.
No worries.
So do you feel, so you're saying that in that district, the kids are not matriculating as efficiently or equally as other districts?
But of course, yes.
Okay,
I mean, the statistics are there. I mean, we know that our third graders are still struggling. And I will just shout out.
Why do you think that, though, as the commissioner? Why do you think that?
Well, again, I'm not a subject matter expert, but I can only say that all of it stems back to their learning opportunities. And those opportunities come out of the school systems and whatever that organization or whatever needs to happen, right? I'm not quite sure what is happening in terms of the funding for teachers and what they have need of or access, but there's lots of money there. And then the trouble for me is not being able to readily identify where your calculation errors have been in the past. So that's problematic. And that's some of the reason maybe that some of these children don't have access. I will just shout out some miraculous work that's being done through Union Baptist Church. They're getting individuals on the ground to go back into schools. And I think that you do that too as well.
Yeah, we've been doing it for
I wish I had the
3
time,
years.
but I don't have time. But, many hands make the work light.
Of course.
So if we all get in and, commit to an hour or 2 hours a week, we can make things better. And this is on a volunteer base. You don't have to be paid to do that. Just get in where you fit in.
I know. I go every Monday to North Hills Elementary.
Thank you.
This is year 2, teaching the class every Monday.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. I got to throw you a fastball.
I didn't finish with my list.
Oh, go ahead.
My wish list.
Go ahead.
So I would definitely, we know that we have affordable housing issue, right? But the city just had their State of the Union address and talked about the $30 million. Yeah, $30 million. Our Mayor Alan Jones talked about $30 million that came down from the state. So to do affordable housing, and they have a strategic plan for over 10 years, which is great. But from a standpoint of a county commissioner, we have many homes. I remember the home that I lived in on Jackson Avenue in East Winston. It still looks the same 30 years from ago when I used to live there.
Wow.
So, I'm just thinking that if we, again, have this cooperation, the collaborations between city and county, we can do the work to try to help with community economic development. They have a community economic development. We can flip these homes and so that individuals can have access to affordable housing. And then those individuals can feed into our property tax system.
Okay.
So they can share in that. Yeah.
You ready?
Let's see was there anything else. I think that's all that I have on the top of my list right now.
You ready?
Yes.
It's a fastball. It's coming fast. You better ready to hit it.
Okay, let's go.
So, do you think all schools are created equal?
But they say that as a mission and vision, but I don't believe so.
Okay. So here's a question I've always had.
And that's nationwide. That's just not here.
We're talking right here.
But in Forsyth County, I believe that there's a heart to do it.
But it's not.
Superintendent Tricia McManus is awesome.
Promising but not proven.
Yes, just give her some time. And
No. I'm not criticizing.
No. I'm not. It's not a criticism.
We're just talking about the schools, exactly, right?
Sure.
So you're saying they're not all equal?
But of course not.
Of course not. So here's my question then, right? So if the schools are not equal, would you think or would you suggest or would you support that some schools should get more funding than others?
But of course, yes. And I don't know why that's not happening.
Okay.
Especially
I'm just curious.
for
I don't
those.
know. I don't count the money. I'm not the bean counter.
Well, I count money.
Well, I count my money, but I count the sheriff's office.
I got to count your money too.
Yeah, and I count my personal, but I don't count everybody else's money, all the other entities in the county.
But of course.
But I always wondered that because when I travel around the county and I travel to different schools,
Mm-hmm.
that question always pops in my mind. And I always, they say follow the money.
Right.
That's the thing that we do in this study of methodology and criminology is that follow the money, track the money,
Okay.
trace the money, right? And so when I follow the money all the way back to those who give it. And it comes back to you all, right?
Right.
And so I've always wondered that. And so, but you've answered it. So I appreciate you being honest about that.
Yes. I will just say, and I'll use Carver High School as one of those schools that we definitely know need support. There's lots of schools that need support, even Ashley Elementary School.
Why haven't they gotten it, you think? How many years you think they've been needing it?
Forever. My son is a graduate from
Mine is too.
Carver High School. Thank God for Mr. Daniel Pickett being there to kind of help him matriculate.
Yeah.
And he went off to service and, have done 8 years in disabled vet now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just grateful for that. But knowing there are some individuals like Dr. Janet Spriggs who's being intentional about supporting those lower level schools. And, they have a great program that is on the access right now with the Forsyth Tech schools and Carver High School, and getting to those programs, because everybody's not going to go to college, and that's okay. But you can go to get your certificate program in aerospace or IT and come out making $70,000 a year. But for some reason, our children are not taking advantage of it, and we just got to help them understand the importance of it.
Here's my challenge to you and the commissioners.
Sure.
Here's my challenge. Is that, and this ain't got to do with law enforcement, but then again it does, because social issues become criminal issues, right?
Sure.
Economically. I challenge you to take a hard look at some of our schools in that district that you're referencing,
Mm-hmm.
and put the resources in those schools for those kids to be successful. It's going to take dollar amount
Mm-hmm.
to change the narrative. When I look at, and I always compare the school to the school across town or the school this way or that way. I look at Ashley. We talked about Ashley years ago, right?
Right.
Nothing happened there.
Right.
Meanwhile, we spent money somewhere else, right? I look at Hill, Philo, Carver. I could look at quite a few other schools, right?
Right.
And you say, if we all are the same district, that'd be like, if I'm the father of 7 boys, right? One of my boys, or 2 of my boys, or 3 of my boys shouldn't go without, and 4 have.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So if we all under the same district, then how do we sit and say, okay, well, this school don't have that, and we know it, and we've known it for quite some time, and there's been no resources attached to it. I struggle with that a lot.
So let me just make sure that we're very clear in terms of the school board. We fund the school board. Our role in
I'm not criticizing school board. That ain't where I'm going.
No. What I wanted to say, what our role and responsibility is versus what individuals see us do. So we're only responsible for infrastructure, but we do a lot. Forsyth County should be applauded, because I don't know a lot of people, do they know this, but we give about $150 million to the school systems.
That's strong.
The teachers' pay comes from your state legislators, not us. And, when we did the quarter-cent sales tax, it was for education. So it's like, once we give you the money for your budget, whatever you do with it, you're responsible for. But I don't want you to come back to me and say, Commissioner McDaniel, I just kind of miscalculated, $5 million of the $5 million that you gave me. That's unacceptable.
Right.
But whatever you do, once the money is released from us, that's your role and responsibility. And the same goes for the school system. It's their responsibility to make sure that those, and I would say that it would be maybe from the school board and that leadership team to kind of devise a plan, because all schools are not equal, and we know that. And for those in schools that are struggling, to put some more resources and support. Yeah, that's correct. Resources and support in those schools.
So let me ask you this, right? But
I'm not a school board member.
I'm not either. I just asked a question. Ask questions.
But
I don't
it's
know.
Good, because people don't know. This is good education.
Yeah. So you just said something. I was about to wrap it up, but you said something that sparked my interest again, right?
Sure.
You said salaries, right?
That's right.
So who's responsible for the the deputies and the
We're responsible for your whole budgets.
You hit another home run.
However,
so here's the question.
However, we're not responsible for the increases.
No. Who do I need to speak to about increasing the salaries of our deputies and our detention officers? How do I go about doing that?
So I think that we did give you some increases into your budgets, but if not, that's something that we can definitely be looking into.
Can we count on your support on that?
But of course, you've had my support from the very beginning.
The work, true. The work that the officers do,
but of course,
the deputies do. I definitely think we need to look at rewarding them and increasing their salaries, because without them, the infrastructure would fall. Without them, we wouldn't be able to enjoy the privileges that we enjoy, the safety. And so, I wonder that I think that we need to at least be above where they are.
But of course, I would agree with that. But I'm only one vote, right?
But I'm saying, if you work your magic and we start this conversation, we can say we started it on April the 4th.
That's right.
Right? And we're going to continue it. And knowing that, that the sheriff's office at least got one person that's interested in having that conversation. Because I think that's a great place to begin.
I'd love to look at your numbers, where you are now versus.
We're very transparent. We open our books to anybody and everybody.
Right.
They even want to know who I'm calling on the phone now, who I'm emailing, right?
Right.
I never thought that my life was so important that people want to know who I'm emailing, right? Yeah. Or who I'm calling. But hey,
interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. But I appreciate you stopping by today. I appreciate you being here. I'm going to give you the last word or last question. Anything you like to say?
I don't have any questions. I would just say thank you for always being open to listen and being open to receive, and us working alongside each other and not against each other, because that's so important. Relationships matter. And remember, just because it's not unanimous, as long as you got 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're good.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All of what we do is driven by what the taxpayers and what you all work into our budget. I want to publicly say I appreciate all the commissioners, whether they vote for us or against. I appreciate the fact that they even show up to vote. So I appreciate the work that they do. Love you guys. And as always, the office of the people, anything that we can do, we're here to serve. Servants at the office of the people. I want to thank you all for joining us on Off the Cuffs. I've enjoyed my time with Commissioner Tonya McDaniels today. It was a pleasure. Look forward to many more conversations with you. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep walking and keep talking. As always, I love this community. I love the support. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you.